Hey there, everybody. It's Eternal Snowman here with another episode of BLT recap and predictions. And I'll be going through the week 3 matchups. And because this is the last week before playoffs, there's also tiebreakers. So I'll be doing predictions on the tiebreakers. And because we're doing a video on the tiebreakers instead of the next round, which will be the first round of the playoffs, there will also be a video later this week going through the results of the tiebreaker as well as the predictions for the round 1 of the playoffs. So without further ado, let's get into the recap part of this. So the recap, first I'm going to start with kind of going into it, what the stakes are and kind of what the results mean. So first, the Stuffles and Swamperts played for seeding. They're playing for the first seed in their bye going into the knockout stage. Because they tied, it means that they play another best of 3 tiebreaker to determine who gets the bye for the playoffs. The Weaviles and the Alakazams, however, are playing for the final spot in the playoffs for their division, where the Weaviles need to win to be able to get into a tiebreak to get it, and the Alakazams could secure it with a tie or a win. Because the Weaviles won this, it means that they're now going into a tiebreak, and the Weaviles will now play a tiebreaker against the Alakazams to see who gets the final spot in the playoffs. And then, similarly, the Laxes and the Reshiroms needed to win to be able to get a tiebreak to get into the playoffs, and because of that, the Reshiroms are because they did win, the Reshiroms and the Laxes, us, will be playing a best of 3 to see who gets the final seed. And then the Heatrans and the Blastoises, much like the other division, are playing for the bye seed in the playoffs. And because the Heatrans won this week, the Heatrans are in the playoffs, or in the first seed in the playoffs in their division, so they get the bye. So, moving on, that we'll go through each of the individual matchups. So Plimsoll Punks versus Pidgeot Mega. I think Plimsoll Punks, they both didn't play amazing, but Plimsoll Punks played solid enough to be able to take the win. Similarly, I don't think like for the OU match, I don't think Tote played amazing, but he did play well enough to beat Halamon, who I believe has underperformed in this tournament. Or it's an underperformance to be able to not pick up a single win for him. I think he's shown better tournaments before this, but obviously the tournament's not over for him because they still have playoffs ahead. So we'll see how he does in the future. Moving on to UU, Snowfall versus Kather. Snowfall played solid in a win. I don't have that much to say about this match. I think that Snowfall just showed that there's a reason that he, people are predicting him, and he played solid. Arsenide versus the Welshwall. This one is probably kind of a controversial match, / there's a lot of talking point about this. So basically, because I didn't watch the match live, this is basically what I've heard afterwards. But the Welshwall, basically, there was a crucial turn where Arsenide had a Future Sight in play from a Gardevoir, and because of that, and because the Welshwall was kind of like, there was like a long time between turns or something like that, he basically forgot about the Future Sight. I've heard after that, there was like about 15 minutes between the turns, and which, that's like a long time to kind of remember everything. So he kind of forgot about it on this crucial turn, and it lost him the game. Not to say that he would have won if he'd remembered the Future Sight, but it would have been closer, and it wasn't the game wasn't supposed to end on that turn, at least. So Arsenide does pick up a win, which is, good for him. It is kind of unfortunate that he did it under these circumstances, but it is a good win for both the Stuffles and Arsenide. Epic Boost lost to Bad Player, and Bad Player has quietly gotten a 3-0. I wouldn't say he's had the hardest competition, really, but it is still very impressive, and it'll for the Swampers to be able to continue their success into the later rounds of the playoffs and maybe even the finals. They will have to kind of rely on him to be playing at this level to eventually, if they want to try to reach a championship. Omnis Draco and PU beat 100% GXE on 100% GXE, kind of choking the game away. There was a crucial crit that would have changed the course of the game for sure, but Omnis Draco also, 100% GXE also had a 100% win at the end of the game, or close to 100% win, where instead of where he accidentally clicked sleep powder. I don't know if it was on accident or he didn't realize that something was already asleep or what it was, but he basically if he clicked Giga Drain with Tangela, he had a basically 100% chance to win that game, and because of that, um, it is like kind of very it is very unfortunate that like this is a circumstance that uh, he lost under, but it happens, and um, for that, Omnis Draco takes the win. But I would say that most of the time, GXD should have won this match. And also on that note, it does bring up that he is now 1-2. But like, I feel like in a lot of ways that GXD has been kind of put in a position to fail by Plaz and Raj.Shoot in the sense that um, GXC has been like matched up against like the other team's best player in a lot of different weeks where he doesn't have like the tier specialization or anything. Like in PU, I don't think he's at the level of Omnis Draco or Ziri, even though he should have won this game against Draco. And I think although the results say otherwise, I am pretty impressed with his game, even though it has been a 1-2 like record in the group stage. I don't think it reflects everything about like how he's played. And then Raj.Shoot lost to I'm Just Gray. I've had a kind of hard time getting to read him. So on the other hand of like 1-2 on GXC's side, I think like the 3-0 from Bad Player and the 2-1 from Raj.Shoot are also not as representative of their play throughout the group stage. I think that they've had kind of worse opponents, or Raj.Shoot has had like an up and down. He's had played very well against Serene Grace, and probably had like a pretty good matchup as well. But like he didn't play as well against like I'm Just Gray, or um, and I think like he doesn't he hasn't shown the consistency to kind of be the top player that I kind of projected him to be coming into this week, which is very important because kind of being a top player doesn't just mean being able to beat other top players. It also means being able to beat everyone that's worse than you. And 2-1 is still a fantastic record for him. And if the Stuffles want to get farther in the playoffs, then Rajashu will also need to be playing well for this team. And in doubles, TTTX also finishes with a 2-1 record over Boyne with a win here in week 3. And a lot of players have been or TTTX has been kind of fulfilling the role that he, like for how much money he was bought with the 17 or 18K or whatever was spent on him. Kind of he didn't have that much to show for in Smogon tiers before this, or in Smogon doubles rather. But his experience in VGC has allowed him to pick up a few crucial wins for the Swampards, and he has shown that he was worth that 17K or whatever. But with his only loss being to SMB, who is like basically one of the best doubles players around right now. And so TTTX will have to continue his success against other teams to be able to really show that he is a top player. So it is interesting to see how good he has been playing, and it shows that VGC players can transition to Smogon tiers if they try. And moving on to the Alakazams versus Weaviles, the first game was Ninja Dog versus Dan Demand. Dan Demand finishing with a 3-0 as well, alongside Bad Player, being the only two in this division, I believe. I actually don't know. No, I believe Chaitanya also got a 3-0. But Dan Demand finishing with a 3-0, very surprising to a lot of people, myself included. I didn't really rate him as a top player. However, he's played pretty, like, not terribly, but really, like, MJ's Uber support and, like, being able to use these relatively easy to use teams to a decent degree is, admirable. And beating Ninja Dog is obviously not like the hardest, or obviously very impressive. And Ninja Dog has underperformed very heavily throughout this tournament, finishing 0-3 so far. Granted that he hasn't been playing in his, in LC, which is like his best tier, but it does call into question kind of their draft. But with that said, it is still a very big underperformance, even though it is in tiers that he's not comfortable in. Chaitanya beat Attribute, and Attribute did not play very well in this game. I think one thing that really separates the tip-top players from kind of like the next tier down is their ability to kind of recognize win conditions and late game scenarios. And I'll say that this week I also messed this up. So I'm not trying to say that Attribute is like or like terrible or anything, but I'm just like saying that this is something that a lot of players will mess up on, myself included, which is kind of the foresight of the game to be able to kind of see multiple trends into the future. And I think Attribute kind of played the game too slow and didn't take advantage of his like core swing mons. And because of that, Chaitanya was able to close out the game. Even though I believe Attribute had the tools to potentially make some plays, he just didn't go for it, or like didn't go for it soon enough, and kind of was willing to slowly lose the game. Surfy Teen beat Sam.Tan. There wasn't that much to say about this game. Surfy Teen has shown up to be relatively solid, and I expect him to continue his solid play. And it'll be interesting to see how well he matches up against the other players, if he does get another chance, of course, in the playoffs. And then GG, I guess, Lamau beat King of Crimea very solidly, which is very surprising. King of Crimea has been, coming into this tournament, I did say that he would be one of the better RU players coming in, and he has, I believe, he is 0-3, and had like a relatively weak showing throughout this group stage. Granted, he has had some really tough opponents before this, like the Welsh Ball and RS9, but he should have been winning against GG, I guess, Lamau, but it's not always the case that the better player wins, and he might not even be the better player anymore. GG, I guess, Lamau could have just had like a great showing and played very well, or like he did play very well this game. And then Luthier subbed in for Peachy Clouds and beat the Amuse. There wasn't that much to say about this game other than actually I want to have a small aside for this one. For this game and kind of like this this matchup for the NU matchup, I don't want to really point fingers, but I just want to highlight that I'd prefer if I would rather see BLT players or just like smoke gun players in general kind of exercise a certain level of sportsmanship. And it's mostly to say like you should respect the opponent's wishes to a certain degree at least, to show respect. I think that on the Weebell side there were certain players, which I won't name in this video, that I feel like didn't live up to that sportsmanship that it should be expected from anybody, basically. And obviously there aren't rules in place or anything at the moment to like kind of have to say that these are against the rules, but I'm just I would prefer if people kind of exercise that level of sportsmanship, because it's just something that should be done. Like, and I know that some people on that side who have done that are apologetic, and they don't want to, or it was a mistake on their side. But I just want to make sure that this doesn't happen again, especially in BLT, because I feel like for a tour of like this, there isn't a reason to be like toxic or whatever. And have the newer players like allow them to have their experience. Like, we don't need to kind of say they're bad or whatever. Even if I do say that sometimes, I mean it all in kind of as a constructive way. I'm not trying to say that because you're bad that you can't get better or anything. I just mean some players are better than others, and it's my duty, I guess, to make predictions on these So I'll have to pick a side on at some point. Moving on to PU, Ziri beat El Cap. There wasn't that much to say. Ziri just played solid and won. Serene Grace versus Pokeart. There wasn't that much to say about this one. All three of the last matchups, PU, LC, and doubles, went as expected, and they were some of the most one-sided of this tournament. And not that much to say. They all won as expected. So moving on to the Laxes versus the Reshiroms. Mysterious M beat Jaren. I don't think there was that much to say. I think Mysterious M played very well. He just kind of choked Jaren out of the game and did show a lot of like what makes him a good player. And there wasn't that much to say about this match. I think I was very impressed with Mysterious M. Dennis versus Maroon. Maroon had a perfect matchup, or Dennis had a really bad matchup, is a better way to put it, rather. Maroon had a Reuniclus, and Dennis had no answer to the Reuniclus, and the Reuniclus basically just won. So there was nothing that Dennis could have done in this game, so Maroon won that one. My personal game versus Solar Flare, who got subbed in. I'm very disappointed in myself for losing this match because there was a few crucial turns that I messed up. Kind of talking similarly about the attribute mistakes from earlier. I would say that there is like one crucial turn where I didn't have the foresight to kind of see why during the game why like what needed to happen, and because of that I kind of made a huge mistake, and it cost me the game. I didn't get any scald burns after 5 fishes. However, I can't complain too much because I've always had the mentality that if I could have played better, then I can't blame it on luck. If I played like perfect and then I got lucked before because of that, or sorry, if I played perfect and then I got lucked, and then I can kind of complain about luck. But in the scenario that I didn't play perfect, then I should always reflect on what I could have done better. And in this case as well, I didn't play perfect. There was a turn that I like severely messed up on, and because of that, I could have done better, and I can't blame luck for that. Although on the small asterisk that the scald burns did matter, of course. But I shouldn't think about winning in spite of. I should think about winning without having to go to that scenario, basically. Um, and it was a crucial game this week, so that was unfortunate. Harley versus Carolina. Tom Bugan or Harley. Harley once again was put in a position to win, similar to week 1. However, he kind of messed up the last, like the very end game, where he had a very good chance to win if he kind of used Golisopod to pressure early, and he didn't use the leverage that he had early in the game, or earlier in the game, other than the last few turns, and because of that, he kind of had a position to almost always win, but because of that, because of his like failure to kind of recognize a few small things, he dropped the game to Carolina. Also with some luck added on because he missed a toxic, but it definitely mattered that toxic miss, but he should have kind of played it in a different way, is the best way to put it. So because of that, he lost the game. Sanjay beat P-Toad. There wasn't that much to say. Sanjay was going to win this. Ronman versus Skipcan. I'm pretty mad at Ronman for this one, but he basically just forfeited the game early in the game. He didn't have a winnable matchup as well as this, but like I just feel like this isn't something that should be done during team tours. If it's an individual tour, then sure, it's your decision, of course. But feel like for Ronman that the decision to join a team tour and basically commit is also that when you agree to play a game at a certain time, that you should also be ready to have things happen during that time. So you shouldn't like be leaving games at any point. Um, but that's more of like an internal thing, I guess. I shouldn't complain about that. Cificon versus Mikav. Mikav just played solid and beat Cificon. Not too much to say about this one. And same with doubles. Cheese beat Saba very solidly. Just played. He had kind of a scary matchup, but he played very solid and capitalized on his win condition, which was Mega Scizor, and played well and beat Saba. In the Heatrans versus Blastoise matchup, Richard Pepper beat Reggie. I believe Richard Pepper was using web. I want to say it was webs or some sort of HO. But don't quote me on that one. I do think that Richard Pepper has been especially impressive, I guess, or surprisingly impressive is a better way to put it. That he has picked up a bunch of wins against players who he wasn't really favored against. London and Reggie now. Um, and I didn't have rate him very highly, but with his team, the team support he's gotten, he's kind of picked up a few important wins for the Heatrans. Ham beat Tragedius. There wasn't that much to say. Ham just kind of shut him down. Terracotta beat Oras Mega. Um, I think that some people have said that this game was a little hacksy. It was hacksy, but it was on both sides. I don't think Terra got a huge advantage because of luck. There was turns that he got hacked on, Terra got hacked on, and there was turns that he hacked Oras Mega as well. So, it kind of balances out. I don't know exactly the outcome of the game without hacks, but, it's part of the game, and also because it was on both sides, I wouldn't say that it was like solely because of that. But Terra did pick up a win there. Keeping it icy beat Lugia Numer. I think keeping it icy brought a very solid team. He had kind of the answers. He knew that basically what Lugia Numer could have brought in and kind of just shut him down. And it was very well done on his side. Prince of All Tacos beat Spitfire Arcanine, and it was also quite solid. I think Spitfire Arcanine brought a little bit of a questionable team. Well, I'm not sure, but basically, Prince of All Tacos had double Scarf, and it was very good at shutting down what Spitfire Arcanine wanted to do. And in PU, V beat X Skelly. I think X Skelly, or no, this game had no longer mattered at this point, I believe. So X Skelly basically just brought a meme. So there's that, and then Frisso beat Jack in My Box. There wasn't that much to say about this one. And then Shadow Monster beat Havens, which is actually quite big. I believe Havens finished 1-2, I want to say. I'm not 100% sure, though. But I believe Shadow Monster brought Hard Trick Room, or I think it might have been Semi Room or something like that. But he has actually shown up to be a lot better of a player than I would have originally thought, and somebody to watch out for. I think part of it may have to do with Frisso's kind of team building, because a lot of the entry barrier into doubles is that team building for doubles is very, very difficult. It's very nuanced. There's a lot of kind of small things that can swing a match hugely. There's a lot of different things to account for, and of course, playing it is also very difficult. But when given a good team, it does make a huge difference. So I think that having Frisso as support does actually kind of boost his stock here in doubles a lot more than maybe I originally thought it would. So he has had a pretty good group stage performance in a 2-1 in like a relatively strong doubles group as well, or a doubles tournament in general as well. So they'll need him to keep performing at a high level if they want to continue to win and move on into the finals. So with the recap portion of it done, I think it's time now to move towards the basically the prediction part for the tiebreakers. So with 3 tiebreakers all being well, this one, the first one being for seeding, and the next 2 being for playoffs. There's a lot of matches still to be played for the before the playoffs begin. So I'll be going through all of them and kind of giving my predictions more in depth. And for this one, because I think that there's more to talk about, of course. So the first one will be Plimsoll Punks versus Omnis Draco in Ubers. I think Plimsoll Punks is actually quite favored here. The one kind of like question mark for me is that why was Plimsoll Punks here instead of GXC? I think GXC is by far a better Ubers player. I just don't see the Omnis Draco as being a good Ubers player though. So even with Plimsoll Punks kind of being a worse player, quote unquote, I still favor him here over Omnis Draco. I haven't seen anything impressive from Plimsoll Punks in the Ubers games he's played though, so he has to show me more before I'm like actually convinced. And then in OU, 100% GXC is playing Bad Player. I've never seen Bad Player play OU, or actually I haven't seen GXC play OU very much either, so I have no idea how to predict this match. I think that GXC should be favored though on the outset though. I think that overall he has shown me that he's a more solid player. But if Bad Player shows up here, maybe it might change my mind about like how well he is or how good he is as a player in general. And then the one match that is actually clear to me is that TTTX will beat RS9. I think that this one is definitely the least close of the three. The other two matches, I think there's one or both sides kind of have there's a lack of information, at least from my side, to be able to know how good they are. But I think TTTX will definitely be a kind of outclassing RS9. I think doubles is a tier that if you have an advantage in, it's a huge advantage, and TTTX will take this win, and he's shown to be a very good player. So moving on to the next tiebreaker, the Weavals versus Alakazams. Chaitanya versus Attribute, which will be a rematch in this for this week. Honestly, I think Chaitanya is favored here. Okay, actually, I should give my matchup predictions. So, I believe that the Swamperts will be favored here. Well, actually, no. You know what? I believe the Stuffles will be favored, and they'll win 2-1 with them winning Ubers and OU while still losing doubles. And then in the next match, the Weavals and Alakazams will play. Chaitanya, I think, is favored. He did beat Attribute, and I think he's shown up to be a better player than Attribute throughout this tournament. In doubles, SMB has to be favored. I don't think that it's going to be very close. SMB is the best doubles player in this tournament for sure, and Peachy Clouds is not at that level. And then in LC, this is where it comes down to, and I think Serene Grace will be favored versus Ziri. I think both the OU and LC matches are maybe close, relatively close, but slightly favored towards the Weaviles, and the Alakazams are heavily favored in the doubles match. I think it's a similar story for the Stuffles versus Swamperts. So because of that, I believe the Weaviles will take this one 2-1 as well. And then my own matchup versus the Reshiroms, I'll be playing versus Mikab in LC, and then Sanjay versus Jaren in NU, and Mysterious M versus Maroon in OU. I think Sanjay is the clear favorite here in NU, and then both of the other matches will be close. I don't really know how they're going to go, but it'll be interesting to see because, you know, it does represent our playoff spot. And it would be a huge disappointment if we do not make the playoffs this year, and in what I believe to be like a relatively strong roster. So, you know, this does determine a lot, but hopefully we do pick it up and end up with the win in the tiebreaker. I do place a lot of the blame on myself because, you know, losing that last game this week was very unfortunate. With that said, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of BLT recap and predictions. And look forward to another video going over the tiebreak and the first stage of the playoffs. Even if I'm not in them, that'll be fine. I'm still going to be covering everything as, you know, kind of your resident BLT media guy, I guess. I don't know what you would call it. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.